What if you and I had a dream school? Ano kaya yun? Would it have dinosaurs like experiments? Little things that become big. What if we could suddenly see invisible things? Would it have a giant heart or a big, big brain? Or fly us into outer space? May sagot sa ating mga tanong, pero tuturuan din tayo magtanong. Okay lang din magkamali, so that we learn so much more. Sa dream school natin, learning is never boring. So it's an adventure. How do we do that? What do we do? With the power of science, art and imagination, all the wonders you will find in the mind is school.
Tara na!
Let's learn all about our amazing world dito sa Mind is Cool! Where are you, Mikey? I can't see you with all this gas.
Ako rin, Fisher. Hindi kita makita. It's so strange, but it's so much fun.
Oh, now you can see us. Hello, everyone. Kasi kanina kami ni Mikey, we were doing an experiment and ito yung naging resulta.
Ganito talaga when you're experimenting with something whose molecules are so small and light, so far apart and moving so fast.
Yes, Mikey. In the past weeks, we learned about two states of matter, or personalities of matter, solids and liquids. Now, what we see here is vapor. Ganyan ang mga molecules na nasa gaseous state. Yan ang adventure natin today. Isang gassy adventure. Mikey and I are scientists here at the Mind Museum. Ang tawag sa amin dito ay Mind Movers.
Dito sa Mind is Cool, we make sure learning is always an adventure. So today, we have a mission to find out, why does air float?
And for this adventure, we have some pretty cool tools, like this. Timba na may plastic na nakakabit. And also, we'll use some balloons later.
Simple lang naman ang mga bagay na ito, pero magpapatunayan ito that air exists even if we don't see it.
And also that air, like all gases, have unique properties that make them different from solids and liquids.
Ready ka na, Fish? Nasaan ka na, Fisher?
I'm here, Mikey, and I'm ready to fire. 1, 2, 3.
Wow! Naramdaman ko yun, Fisher, but here's some from me. Isa pa.
Wow, I felt that. Ang galing.
But why did we feel that? Magkalayo naman kami sa isa't isa. And we really did not throw any object at each other.
That is because all around us is air, or hangin. Dahil matter ang hangin, it is of course made of molecules or combinations of atoms. Pero air molecules are in a gas state. At kapag gas state ang matter, their personality is free-spirited. Yung parang independent, hindi sila dikit-dikit at mabilis sila gumalaw at kumalat sa space as long as there's something they can occupy. And that's why air floats.
So yung space between the pail and myself, madaming air na binangga nito when Fisher released the plastic. The force created a vibration na bumunggo sa mga molecules hanggang makarating sa akin. Kaya ko siya naramdaman. Kung walang hangin, wala dapat akong mararamdaman. Kaya hindi talaga to see is to believe kasi kahit hindi natin nakikita directly ang gases katulad ng hangin, you know they are real.
Pero isa pang katangian ng gas ay kahit magaan siya at lumulutang, meron pa din siyang mass. At papatunayan namin ni Mikey sa inyo yan.
Tama, Fisher. And all we need are balloons. We fill them up with air like this. Yung isang balloon, konti lang yung hangin. Pero yung isa naman, mas madami. And we mounted them on a seesaw balance. Di ba kung nakasakay na kayo ng seesaw, kapag mas mabigat ang isang side, mas bababa siya. Tingnan natin anong mangyayari sa balloons.
Dahil mas maraming hangin sa balloon na to, mas mabigat ang side na to. Kaya tignan nyo, yung balloon sa side na to, mas bumaba.
See, we proved that air, even if invisible and very light, still has mass, and therefore, may weight ito.
Meron din siyang volume, and this can be proven if we fill up a balloon like this.
Wow. Okay, so if you notice, the air that is filling this balloon is spread throughout the space inside the volume, as long as walang butas ang balloon. Walang parte ng balloon na walang hangin. Ganyan ang gas. It fills up the entire space, kahit gaano pa kalaki. Basta may space. Ang pagsukat ng space na ito ay volume.
When we come back after the break, we'll talk to a scientist to learn more about the connection between gas and weather. In the previous episodes, we learned that matter makes up our universe. How atoms are arranged and how they interact with each other determine the personality or states of matter. Let's look at how the atoms of gases are compared to the atoms of solids and liquids. You know something is a gas if its molecules are very far apart, in other words, not dense, and always moving very fast. Gas molecules also fill up their container, no matter how big it is, as long as there's space, which is why it has no definite volume.
That's right, Fisher. It's so much fun to work with simple everyday materials to prove things like air have mass. At alam niyo ba na ang word na gas ay inimbento ng isang Belgian scientist na ang pangalan ay Johannes Baptista van Helmont in the 17th century. Galing ito sa salitang Greek na chaos. He conducted an experiment in which he burned 28 kilograms of charcoal. Pero nung natapos, ang natira na lang ay kalahating kilo ng abo. What do you think happened to the rest? He concluded that they turned into gas.
Interesting bit of trivia, Mikey. Pero baka nagtataka kayo kung bakit ang mga lobo na ito ay hindi lumulutang ng mataas. Hindi katulad ng mga lobo na nakikita ninyo sa birthday parties. Ito ay dahil maraming klaseng gases. The air around us is mostly made of nitrogen and oxygen molecules. When I blew up the balloon kanina, I took air from the surroundings. And oxygen and nitrogen yon. Yun sa balloon na lumulutang, ang laman niya ay helium na mas magaan kesa sa hangin. At dahil mas magaan siya kesa sa hangin, pwede siyang lumutang. Hindi kagaya sa lobo na to, na ang laman ay hangin lang, kaya hindi lumulutang ng mataas.
So kids, now you know. Pag sinabi niyong hangin, ang pinakamadaming components nito ay nitrogen at oxygen. Ngayon, ang nilalabas naman na hangin ng ibang tao at hayop na for sure natatawa kayo pag nangyayari ay methane. This is a gas that some of us produce from our digestive process. We have some very interesting questions today from our viewers about the weather and global warming na may kinalaman sa katangian ng matter kapag ito ay gas. Here's one of them.
Ano po ang ibig sabihin ng high pressure at low pressure? At ano ang connection ito sa weather?
We can answer that by doing a very simple but very cool experiment. Fisher is going to try to blow up the balloon inside this bottle.
Ang hirap, Mikey.
Hirap, no? Fisher is trying to blow it up, but parang hindi niya kaya. That is because there is air inside the bottle, and it's already occupying the space that the balloon, if blown, can no longer take up. Now, Fisher, go ahead and try the one with the red balloon. So Fisher was successful in his new experiment, and the balloon inflated and shrunk. That is because there is a hole at the bottom of this bottle. Natutunan natin kanina that air is always moving as long as may pupuntahan. At dahil siniksik ng balloon ang gas sa loob ng container, lalabas ito sa butas kung saan may low pressure. Kapag may low pressure, dito pupunta ang hangin, kaya gumagalaw ang hangin.
Gases follow natural laws in the way they behave, like we have demonstrated here under pressure. We'll learn more about that later in the show. Yung experiment natin kanina, simula pa lang ng sagot tungkol sa koneksyon ng gas at weather. Para mas maintindihan natin ang koneksyon ng low pressure at high pressure sa weather, we have with us Dr. Jerry Bagtasa of the University of the Philippines, Diliman. He is a meteorologist and environmental scientist. Hello, Dr. Bagtasa. Thank you for joining us at Mind the School. Would you tell us more about your work as an environmental scientist and meteorologist? What kinds of things do you study?
Bilang isang meteorologist at environmental scientist, dalawang importanteng bagay ang aking pinag-aaralan dito sa Pilipinas. Una ay ulan. Napaka-importante ng ulan dahil ito ang pinanggagalingan ng freshwater natin. As an environmental scientist naman, I also study air pollution. So, pinag-aaralan ko yung air pollution ng Metro Manila dahil paminsan-minsan mataas yung concentration ng air pollutants kung saan exposed tayo. At napakaraming taong na-expose sa mataas na concentration, pwede itong maging masama sa ating kalusugan.
One of the questions that we have received is how air pressure is connected to weather. Lagi nating naririnig ang low pressure. At pag ganun, may maulan na panahon. Bakit po ba?
So, pressure, ito ang tumutulak paakyat para hindi bumagsak ang hangin. Kung ang hangin na to dahil sa gumagalaw because of the wind, paminsan nababawasan ng hangin, paminsan nadaragdagan. Kapag nadagdagan siya, bibigat, that means tataas yung pressure. Pagka mas magaan naman yung hangin na nasa ibabaw natin, nagiging low pressure. Kapag mas magaan ang hangin na nasa ibabaw natin, mas madali para sa water vapor, na umakyat, maging clouds, at magpaulan. At yan ang dahilan bakit tuwing may low pressure system dito sa atin, whether it be tropical depression or typhoon or a simple low pressure system, kadalasan ay maulap at may pag-ulan. On the other hand, kapag high pressure naman, ibig sabihin napakabigat ng hangin na nasa ibabaw natin. Nahihirapan ngayon tuloy umakyat yung mga water vapor at ang nangyayari, hindi nakakabuo ng clouds, nagiging maaliwalas ang ating panahon.
We have another question from one of our Mind the Schoolers.
What are greenhouse gases? Is it true that they're making the earth hotter?
Greenhouse gas ang tawag dito dahil sa nag-absorb ito ng init ng earth at umiinit tuloy ngayon yung atmosphere natin. So, imbis na yung init ng earth ay lalabas towards sa outer space, natatrap nito na parang kumot, parang blanket, and it retains the heat in the atmosphere. Carbon dioxide ang pinaka-importanteng greenhouse effect dahil 70% of the enhanced greenhouse effect is because of carbon dioxide. Napakarami ni carbon dioxide because of our fossil fuel use. Dahil sa enhanced greenhouse effect, nagkakaroon tuloy ng excess na pag-init. So, kanina sabi ko na meron ng pag-iinit ang atmosphere na natural. Pero dahil doon sa excess na dinadagdag natin greenhouse gases, particularly carbon dioxide, meron din excess sa pag-init. Pag sinabi naman natin climate change, dahil sa pagbabago ng temperatura, nagbabago rin yung ibang aspeto ng ating klima. For example, dahil sa umiinit yung temperature, mas malakas ngayon ang evaporation ng tubig dagat. Dahil sa pag-evaporate ng tubig from the sea, nagkakaroon ng more humid environment at dahil dito pwedeng lumakas yung ulan. On the other hand, sa ibang lugar naman sa mundo, pwede naman humina din yung ulan dahil sa natatangay halimbawa ng hangin, yung moisture from one place to another. So dito ngayon pumapasok yung climate crisis. Kung nagbago na yung patterns ng ulan, kung nagbago ang patterns ng weather, dito magbabago rin yung patterns ng mga source natin ng pagkain, magbabago rin yung patterns ng source natin ng tubig, at ngayon dito tayo nahihirapan mag-adapt.
Thank you for helping us understand those important matters that we really need to pay attention to, Dr. Bagtasa. So, ano po ba ang dapat baguhin sa ating mga activities sa buhay natin para hindi magpatuloy ang pagdami ng greenhouse gases?
Sa lahat ng ginagawa natin, may katumbas na carbon emission. So ito ang tinatawag na carbon footprint. So lumabas ka, sumakay ka ng sasakyan, sumakay ka sa jeep, yung jeep gumamit ng gasolina, nag-emit siya ng carbon dioxide. Yung pagkain na kinakain natin, dumating from a farm, dinala siya ng isang truck, nag-refrigerate, binili mo, pumunta ka sa tindahan, hanggang sa iyong hapagkainan, gumamit ng fuel, and may carbon emission yon. So lahat ng ginagawa natin may carbon emission. Lahat ng tao sa mundo, dahil sa nag-exist tayo, may carbon emission. Individually, how can we lower our carbon footprint? Pwedeng instead na using your own car, you can use bicycle, or you can even use trains, you commute. Pwedeng bumili ka ng local products, like for example, yung food na locally grown will have less carbon footprint kumpara sa pagkain na imported na binili mo dahil sa mas maraming gasolina yung ginamit para madala siya dun sa bahay mo.
Thank you, Dr. Bagtasa. Ngayon na alam na natin at mas naiintindihan na natin ang greenhouse gases, dapat talaga mas seryoso tayo na baguhin ang mga pamamaraan sa ating buhay para mabawasan ang greenhouse gases at hindi magpatuloy ang pag-init ng planeta. Sana talaga mapigilan natin ang pagtaas ng temperatura ng Earth.
We'll take a quick break. When we come back, we'll use a super duper cool gas for an experiment that we can eat.
Kanina, nasabi natin na when we say air or hangin, we are mostly talking of nitrogen and oxygen na nasa estado ng gas. Kaya nahihinga natin siya. Meron ding ibang gas na kasama sa hangin, katulad ng carbon dioxide, neon, hydrogen at iba pa. Pero sobrang konti lang.
Hindi natin siya nakikita pero ito ay totoo. Kung hindi siya totoo, imposibleng mabuhay tayo. Tingnan niyo ang nangyayari sa lungs niyo pag humihinga kayo. This is a representation of our lungs. We take in oxygen at yun ang ginagamit ng cells natin para magtrabaho at mabuhay tayo.
We really don't give it much thought, no, Mikey? This is really fascinating stuff. Mas marami pang gas na hindi kasama sa regular natin na atmosphere. Ang iba doon yung sinabi kanina ni Dr. Jerry Bagtasa. Ang iba ay trapped sa ilalim ng lupa or mga byproducts ng industrial processes natin at iba pang activities.
So we have to remember, for our planet to stay alive and livable for humans, we have to keep our air clean. Yan din ang pinaalala sa atin ni Dr. Bagtasa. Imposibleng mabuhay na walang oxygen at isa sa mga sources nito ay ang halaman at puno dahil they give off oxygen.
Tama, Mikey. Kaya makikita ninyo na magkaugnay talaga ang buhay. Napaka-cool ng connections ng mga bagay-bagay. At malalaman niyo ito kapag curious kayo at mag-aaral kayo ng science.
Oo nga, Fisher. Lalo na dahil nature is so awesome that the personalities of matter change depending on the conditions. Things can change from one state to the other. Kaya sobrang daming kombinasyon ng matter ang posible. Wala talagang mas imaginative pa sa nature.
Mikey, siguro bigyan natin ng patikim ang ating mga Mindy Schoolers ng isang ultra-cool experiment to prove these changing states.
Yes, kids, we are going to show you nitrogen, which is usually a gas, but in liquid state. It is ultra cool as liquid nitrogen. Remember, kids, do not try this at home. Huwag niyo ito subukan sa bahay. What we are about to do requires very special training. Kailangan dumaan sa special training at ginawa namin yun ni Fisher.
So the nitrogen in the air is invisible, and at normal temperature is a gas. But at negative 195.79 degrees Celsius, its boiling point, it is a liquid. Liquid nitrogen. And now we will show you the powers of liquid nitrogen.
I'm ready if you are, Fisher.
Oh, yes, I'm ready, Mikey. So what are we doing today?
Well, we are going to mix together some milk and some cream. And of course, a little bit of sugar. And let me just put on my gloves for safety. And you too, Fisher. we are gonna add our special ingredient, liquid nitrogen. So go ahead,
Okay.
Fisher, mix it together.
Nice. So, what are we making here, Mikey?
We are making ice cream!
Oh, cool. Look at that.
Wow!
Oh. Okay, ice
So
cream. I'm excited.
cool!
Right. Well, that's what I call a really cool experiment. Huh. And also, we learn from it while doing it, and we can even eat it. Yum.
Here you go, Fisher.
Yeah.
So what does it taste like?
It tastes like ice cream. It's really good ice cream, Mikey. And I think we can even improve the flavor by adding some toppings. What toppings would you like, Mikey?
I think I'm gonna have some chocolate chip,
Okay.
please.
Have some chocolate chip, and I'll have the gummy worms.
Mmm.
Nice. This is what makes eating ice cream even more special. The exciting experience of the experiment. The colors that you see in the ice cream, the flavors of the different ingredients, the texture and the mouthfeel that swirl in your mouth. It's really good. Mmm.
And let's see, when we pour this super cold liquid nitrogen, it comes into contact with normal room temperature and it becomes vapor. And that's how you see a gas. You can't see us now. Now you can see us again, just in time too.
Yes, Mikey. Time for one of my favorite things. The coolness meter! All our adventures here are super cool, but we rate them as different types of cool. We have mind-blowingly cool, mysteriously cool, and inspiringly cool.
Our rating for today's adventure is...
Inspiringly cool!
It's always so much fun learning with you all here at Mind is Cool.
For our next learning adventure, we'll look at some of the weirdest kinds of matter. We'll also find out, is there something that is not matter? We want to know what you think about these questions. If it's not solid, liquid, or gas, then what is it? And why do you need to learn about science even if you do not want to work as a scientist? And remember, it's okay to offer answers which you're not sure of, but that you'd like us to explore together.
Please share in your answers, thoughts, and questions about that or anything about the show on our Facebook and Instagram at MindIsCoolPH, or you can send us an email too. We'll share some of your submissions on the show.
See you next time dito sa Mind is School, where
Where
learning leads to a better normal.
For more fun science and art videos, subscribe now!